Hey everyone, Pugs here with one new reviews for y'all. Today I'm covering SpongeBob's Last Stand, SpongeBob's environmental special. I suppose in a way this is a long time coming given the background of this show and its creator, although the environmental message here is not the clean the oceans one you'd expect, which is kind of fun. Or, as fun as something like this can be, I suppose. Anyway, let me move on to the part where I say thank you to everyone watching today. Your support is, as always, very appreciated. And now, let's just get right into it. Despite SpongeBob's Last Stand having a very important message to tell, at least in theory, I gotta admit, this episode is forgettable. Like, sure, I can generally remember it now, but before I reviewed this episode a couple years back for the forum, I could hardly remember a thing about it. All I could really recall was that this episode had an environmental message that somehow, despite the fact that the entire concept of SpongeBob SquarePants as a show lends itself to environmental messaging, did not feel very effective. And generally, that's how I feel today. Before I really get started though, one small thing I wanted to say is that I really like the title card design of this episode. It's just good. And it also does a lot of visual storytelling in what this episode is going to be about, so that's pretty neat, since title cards for this show, especially before the movie sequel, do not usually do this. Alright, let's get started now. Jellyfish Fields plays a prominent role in SpongeBob's Last Stand, which I'm happy about because it feels like we haven't really been spending much time in this location, and I always like when things are changed up. The first bit of this episode treats us to some gorgeous backgrounds as well, which is another win. Unfortunately, me feeling all of this positive regard towards this episode does not quite continue during the remainder of these first few minutes. The part with SpongeBob, Patrick, and the park ranger is okay, nothing special, and then we get a song for not even a single reason. At least the singing isn't annoying. I guess now is a good time to let you all know, because I don't think I've actually mentioned this before, that I don't like when people randomly burst into song. That is almost entirely the reason why I don't like musicals either. I can tolerate it, and sometimes even like it. Like, if it's a cartoon, I usually feel less negatively about it, but yeah, not a fan. Anyway, back to the song. This song, the jellyfishing song, reminds me a lot of the Krabby Patty song from Band in Bikini Bottom, and I think it's a decent song. I don't dislike it or anything, but one thing that does bug me about the song is the way that SpongeBob and Patrick just stare at the camera while singing it. Like, could they pretend for 2 seconds like this song wasn't just included because this is a special episode and therefore needs a song? I just feel like there was little, thought or effort put into this song. God, okay, no. That was too media critic of me. I'll refrain from doing that again. This song segues us nicely into talking about the environmental message of this episode, because I like how this song has such a clear message and it somehow doesn't inspire me to get on the soapbox. Kind of. Okay, maybe I will, but just give me a second. Anyway, this song, and this episode in general, is giving the fuck cars subreddit on Reddit, and this is made as clear as can be when Patrick very plainly states the issue that this episode will be addressing, that the construction of this highway will disrupt and therefore destroy the natural ecosystem of Jellyfish Fields. The way Patrick does this is not as funny as I'm sure it was meant to be, but it at least gets everyone on the same page that this episode is ditching the subtlety and being straight up about what it's trying to say. And listen, I am perfectly fine with that. Not all messages need to be subtle, and a message like this one should be stated plainly. However, I just think that this episode chooses the wrong message to not be subtle with. You are underwater. Choose an environmental message about the ocean if you're going to be blatant about it. But maybe that's just me who feels like this episode should have been about an ocean-related environmental issue instead. I will say, though, that this episode is very accurate in what it's like to try to get people to take action on any kind of social issue ever. Oh, the things I could say there. The things I could say. Alright, that's my soapbox for today. Let's bring it back. Actually, wait. One last thing. The whole plot with the highway going over the Krusty Krab is very interesting, considering that this is exactly what happened to many black communities in the US when the highway systems were created, and still happening now. So, that's interesting. But I really am done now, just wanted to share that connection. By the time Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob are confronting Plankton about the highway, the episode has been alright so far. Nothing particularly funny has happened, but the plot is decently interesting, and I like the idea of having Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob team up against Plankton for different reasons, since it gives SpongeBob more independence and it sets the stage for a potential conflict between Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob, which would make sense given that this is a special and therefore that theoretically be time for something like that. Unfortunately, SpongeBob's Last Stand makes like a season 6 episode and squanders its potential. What we get isn't necessarily bad, but it isn't as good as a Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob team up. Because what we get instead is the predictable SpongeBob and Patrick team up, which I thought was already happening, considering the beginning of this episode, but okay. The song the two sing trying to save Jellyfish Fields is pretty good though. However, I can't stand the looks that SpongeBob and Patrick end up wearing, sorry not sorry. And the townspeople here just piss me off, as they tend to do, because even if you're not into the environmental activism, why are you acting like Republicans? I mean, why are you acting like assholes? Why do they want the highway this bad? When the consequences of their actions bite them in the ass, you bet your shit I'm cackling. SpongeBob and Patrick end up being dumped in the middle of nowhere by the cops because, just like in real life, cops in fiction suck balls. But seriously, in what world is this an acceptable punishment for unlicensed use of a sitar? A punitive world, I suppose. At least we get a nice background out of this. Also, I just noticed that this is a special without Patchy. I feel like perhaps he was needed here because this isn't exactly working. I mean, it's not bad, but it's just so meh. And of course, SpongeBob and Patrick are in their underwear for an extended period of time for no reason, and y'all already know I'm not a fan of that. The parade part is ridiculous, and whether I mean that in a good or bad way, I don't even know, because it really just depends on my mood. My judgment on whether this part lasts too long also hinges on my mood. The speech part was simply annoying though, like, why are the townspeople this unwise? It's not even funny. I did like the imagery of the paving of the highway bringing Jellyfish Fields to environmental ruin, like I thought that looked pretty cool, though I feel like the very end of this segment with Patrick playing the trumpet should have been where the episode cut to commercial, but maybe that's just me. This is a small nitpick anyway. Or maybe it's an indicator of this episode having pacing issues. Anyway, back to talking about the visuals. So one thing I like about this episode is that it's really expressive, especially during its second half. I also liked how they kept the Krusty Krab in darkness the whole time, like that was a good choice. Though this episode does kind of disregard the normal formation of the Krusty Krab and the Chum Bucket being right across from each other, so I'm gonna have to take a few points off of the visual category because of that. Just kidding, of course. I don't actually have categories that I quantify like that. I'm merely making a jokey joke. I love that SpongeBob's Last Stand continues with my favorite kind of joke, with Mr. Krabs getting all serious and SpongeBob being all dramatic, with Plan Z Niner Niner. And I love how Squidward cares a little bit too, and this is true even a little bit later when he's talking to SpongeBob while they leave the Krusty Krab. I also just like the dialogue between everyone here, including Squidward calling Mr. Krabs Eugene and Mr. Krabs calling him out for it. But seriously, that plan was silly. Just selling the formula to Plankton, just like that? Surely Mr. Krabs had other options. And Plankton is just so smug about it too. At least until the episode takes a turn. Because now the jellyfish have entered the scene and they are angry, and I love it. I love how it's basically the jellyfish who end up saving the day here. This reminds me a lot of Jellyfish Hunter, which also had an environmental message that, in my opinion, was done better. It's quite cathartic to watch this part of the episode, considering how unwise and annoying and irritating the townspeople were earlier. They absolutely deserve this for refusing to acknowledge reality. And I love how Mr. Krabs leaves Plankton in the dust, and Plankton literally tries using his Segway to get out of there, which predictably doesn't work. The way Mr. Krabs got up out of there too makes me believe that this episode takes place after Jellyfish Hunter, which would give the jellyfish even more reason to be angry. Like, damn, this feud between Mr. Krabs and Plankton refuses to leave them out of it. Anyway, of course, now that the townspeople are being stung, aka dealing with the consequences of their actions, they are now interested in saving Jellyfish Fields. Yeah, y'all are real transparent. And you act exactly like real people do, so how poignant. And I love how when SpongeBob asks for their help to restore Jellyfish Fields and they first say no, even SpongeBob has to be like, y'all are fucking joking, right? The end of SpongeBob's Last Stand, where characters just start walking out of the crowd to some fanfare, is pretty funny and almost feels like the show poking fun at itself for not utilizing some of its main cast as of late. I love how Squidward doesn't even show up either. The ending is cute enough, I suppose, with everyone singing the reprisal of the jellyfishing song, and the group shot was neat. All's well that ends well, I suppose. SpongeBob's Last Stand is alright. I don't really have specific problems that I can point to when it comes to this episode. I just didn't find it to be very funny, and the townspeople are frustrating as hell. The environmental message felt confusing to me, as in confusing why they went with this one and not the much easier and relevant to the location choice of an ocean-themed message. It just feels like there was something lacking here, but I can't put my finger onto what that is. But anyway, I thought that this episode was generally pretty enjoyable, except for the parts where the townspeople make me want to strangle them. I also think that this episode is likely underrated, since I never really see anyone talk about it, but that's just my thought on the matter. So all of this is why this episode is being placed in my good tier, where it comes in with a score of 7.6 out of 10. As always, I'll be ending this video with some closing thoughts of mine. It's funny, there's a lot I could soapbox on regarding this episode. Like, it feels like a primer for getting kids ready to talk about environmental issues in a realistic, read connecting it to capitalism before then connecting it to colonization and anti-indigeneity way. I don't know, ever since I made the Arcane video, I've been thinking more about political issues being represented in an interpersonal manner. This episode is all about essentially deforestation because of the feud between Mr. Krabs and Plankton. If we really squint, we can think about how the highway offers convenience which connects to capitalism and individualism, but obviously that's not explored. All that's explored is Plankton is bad for wanting this, and this is a result of him and Mr. Krabs beefing. Sorry, this is a word salad, but the thinking power that is required for me to make this a real fleshed out thought is currently more than I'm willing to expend. It's just interesting to think about how political issues are portrayed in children's media and what parallels are drawn or what is taken over to adult media. And I think that's all I've got for y'all today, so I think I'm just gonna close things out here, and I will see you all in the next review.